When it comes down to basically any computer nowadays, you have two major CPU industries. You have Intel and you have AMD. Now, as for AMD, AMD has more cores, but they're weaker cores, okay? Which is, so a lot of people, when they see an AMD, they see 8 cores on, let me give an example, the AMD FX 8350, and they see 8 cores, and they're like, dang, that's so much better than the Intel i5, quad core, or whatever. But honestly, they're weaker cores. Intel has less cores, but they are stronger cores. This also optimizes older games because they were more of a single threading applications. So, of course, that might be good if you're for vintage gaming, but, it lacks the potential for modern gaming, in my opinion. And I think more of modern gaming is going for more and more threaded. So that might be an AMD strong suit there, but I can't predict the future, but I think that's where it's headed. Now, Intel, they do have better IPC, instructions per clock. This is better for managing multiple applications, and that's great. AMD also optimizes this in some ways, but not as great as Intel in my opinion. But how many times are you actually going to be running that many applications that you need to be doing smoothly in a working gaming environment? Also, this is also, in my opinion, I wouldn't actually be using that very much, but there are some who might be really getting the benefit out of that feature. For AMD, like I said, they're weaker cores, but they might be going for the modern tech industry by having, more and more threaded cores. But when you really think about it here, I would want to invest way more in a GPU than I would a CPU. I'd rather have a bad CPU with a great GPU to run games than I would a good CPU with a bad GPU. It's just because games are more GPU based than they are CPU. Thus, you need to be spending probably double your money on a GPU than you do on your CPU. Therefore, if you don't really have a budget on your build or on your buy, I would probably go for Intel because they are better performing CPUs on benchmarks, but for the benchmarks, it's not that much of a difference. But I would go for Intel just because they are a better company. But when it comes down to if you are budgeted, like most people, then I would go AMD because AMD, you'll still have money to invest in a GPU, but you are getting a very, very good price per performance for your CPU and will be running most games very, very smoothly. It will work great. So, if I was going to recommend a CPU, I would say AMD FX 8350 currently. But, a lot of people say, well, AMD's great for overclocking. It's so much easier. That's true. But if you really think about it, AMD's a hotter processor. It uses more, it uses more power and doesn't have the power consumption like Intel. But, it's going to get even hotter when it overclocks, so you're going to have to invest more money in your cooling system, and you're going to have to invest more money in your power. So when it really comes down to it, you might be saving money by going Intel with a faster CPU than going AMD overclocking and having to spend more money and all this other stuff. So honestly, if you really add in all the costs there, you might just want to go Intel. But when it comes down to me, I wouldn't personally overclock, so I would go with the AMD FX 8350.